How would you like to learn how Gary built a $40 million e-commerce empire through content marketing? Of course you would. Well, in this video, sadly, we're not going to share with you everything Gary's done, but what we are going to share with you is one important thing, and that's how to find topics to write about. So first of all, Gary, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So Gary, a few years ago, you built yourself an e-commerce, an e-commerce business that didn't take you that long. It took you a few years, but you got it up to a $40 million valuation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you did that primarily through just creating solid content and building this network of content that just drive traffic continuously, correct?
Yeah, I probably did the opposite of what most of the listeners did. I didn't have a lot of money, so the only way that I knew that I could start driving traffic was through content creation, because it was one of the only things I could do that was free. So
I'm sure any listener right now probably peaked their ears up. They're like, didn't have a lot of money. So that's perfect, because one of the challenges that a lot of us have is, of course, there's always the paid traffic strategy. Everyone knows that paid traffic works really well, but the sad thing with paid traffic is that first word, paid traffic. And so if you have a low budget, you could waste a lot of money just trying to figure out how to get going with paid traffic. Never mind, the fact that once you start paying with paid traffic, and if anything happens, if your budget cuts off or anything, what happens is your traffic all stops. Now, the cool thing with what you did is you built a system that right now you don't have to be doing anything, and it's still sending hordes of traffic. Is that correct?
Exactly. So just to preface it, the difference between like paid traffic and sort of the organic or content strategy that I do is you're not going to see that instantaneous result that you would from paid traffic. It's not that instant feedback that you're going to get. But when you look at it from a long-term strategy along with your paid strategy, you're basically building up traffic and eyeballs over time that will continue for years to come if the articles and everything are structured the proper way. So it's not really one or the other. Ideally it's a combination of both. But while you're doing your paid traffic, to be able to build this other traffic source that kind of is essentially free, other than the writing and the time that you're putting into it, is just, for me, was a way for us to kind of diversify our traffic flow.
Awesome. Yeah. And then the benefit you get from that, again, as we said, is that with paid traffic, it stops, but with this kind of traffic, it keeps going. Now, obviously, it's not a set and forget it for eternity. You would need to keep posting new content and keep things going. But one of the things I also want to stress on this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't like you don't need to have like a well-established blog. There's a lot of free sites out there that you can leverage to be able to use content and publish it for content strategy, correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. Most people think that they have to build out this elaborate blog and they have to have this, really fancy website. You can literally do it on a site like Wix.com, or one of my favorites is sites.google, which, also being a Google product, kind of, adds a little extra juice to it as well. But there's a lot of free platforms where you could just start writing and you don't have to worry about building out these elaborate sites and having hosting and all that kind of stuff. Everything's really done for you, which is great these days.
Yeah. A lot of people even think it. I've fallen into that trap too, because, being from the old school SEO days, the idea was, you got to build a WordPress blog, but you don't need to do that anymore. There's so many places out there where you can publish content. Now, ideally, you want to have, if you're an Amazon seller, you want to also have a Shopify site with a blog, and you want to build out all of these content networks. But if you're just getting started now and you don't have a budget or time to even build a WordPress blog, as Gary said, you can just use Google sites, you can use Wix, there's tons of places you can publish content. But the thing is, I think maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse, because the whole question people have, though, is that's great, I can write content and get content, but what do I write about? How do I find content that's worthwhile? Because I think, one of the mistakes I've made in the past, and it was more of a product of how times were in the past, where it didn't really matter the quality of the content, you just wanted the keyword rankings. The times have changed, correct me if I'm not, like you need to have worthwhile content.
Yeah, just kind of side note, I don't want to go down a full rabbit hole on this, but just, as you'd mentioned, things have changed. So Google's gone towards more of an intention-based search versus a keyword. 5-6 years ago, you'd be able to pick your keyword, kind of stuff an article with it, rank really well for it, and that's all you had to do. Now Google's getting more sophisticated because buyers are getting more sophisticated, so that it's more of the intention. It's going towards like a long tail keyword or even questions. I don't know about you, but even when I do Google searches, I no longer just type in like, best stroller. It's might be the best stroller for hiking in the woods or something like that. So you're creating these really long tail keywords or questions. So the content should be around that. The good thing is most traditional or marketers from the past still follow that old sequence. So by kind of scaling up your marketing strategy and going for the questions and everything that people are asking, it's actually a little bit easier to rank now than it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago when people were just keyword stuffing a bunch of articles.
So that's great news, especially for listeners, because chances are what you're saying is most of the competition, if they are doing a content strategy, they're probably just looking at keywords and just getting keyword stuff content written. So even though they might be getting some traction, what you're going to recommend here will provide content that Google looks as far superior and will probably reward a lot better.
Exactly. So everything that I did when I started, especially the last couple of years, I wanted to simplify the process and almost make it proactive instead of reactive. Instead of me trying to figure out what to write, I was finding ways for it to come to me, so they were telling me what to write. So it's a really interesting way to look at it. But yeah, I could dive into that and kind of give you some really quick action steps of how you can find like the types of things that you should be writing about to at least get you started.
Yeah, let's get right into that. I'd love to hear those.
Okay. Yeah, the easiest thing, obviously, if you're just selling on Amazon, you already know what keywords you're targeting. At least you should. Even if you're just starting out, you should really know what keywords you're working on. So that's kind of the basis of one of the strategies that we use. So even if you haven't had any traffic, or even if your business is just kind of getting off the ground, knowing those keywords, I can show you how to take that and actually find topics to write about. One of the easiest ways is taking that, and you can dump it into this program called Answer the Public. So what you do is you put your keywords in there, and it'll give you all the questions or phrases that are being asked around those keywords. So it might be, let's use baby stroller as the example. If you write in baby stroller, it'll actually give you a whole wheel of questions like, what is the best baby stroller for X? What is, how do I do this with the baby stroller? So it'll give you at least a foundation of types of questions that you can answer without even having any kind of traffic or any kind of source of traffic for your business yet.
And that's answerthepublic.com?
Yeah, answerthepublic.com. The other one that I use that's very similar to that is called alsoask.com. It'll give you slightly different variations of questions, but the combination of those two will give you a good foundation of questions that you can answer. So my theory has always been, if somebody's asking a question, there's probably at least 5 or 6 other people that want to know the same answer. So rather than me trying to invent topics, I'd rather just answer questions that people are already asking.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard of that site, answerthepublic.com. What a great resource.
Yeah, it's a great resource. And that kind of leads me to the second one. So if you already have an existing business, you've got traffic to your Amazon store, you've got a bunch of buyers and everything else like that, your customer service is probably receiving questions, whether it's on a daily basis or weekly basis. That is the best source of topics that I could come up with. So what we would do on a weekly basis, we'd have our customer service write down every question that came in, and then we look for patterns. So there might be 5 questions about one of the ingredients in the product. So that would become a topic for an article. It would be like, here are the top 5 questions about X ingredient in our product, or top 5 ways to use our product. But we're letting our customers tell us what questions they had and then answering them. So that when you go back to sort of that Google explanation that I gave before, if you're actually answering a question that somebody's already asking, as soon as they type that in on Google, that's going to rank much higher than somebody that's just going for a keyword. So those were
absolutely it's so true. And oftentimes I think we get lost in the idea of thinking that our content has to be like sexy and appealing. And the idea is, no, it's intent based. And so the idea is, if someone's asking a specific question about your type of product, like that is, to me, like that's the highest converting type of content almost you can buy, because that person is specifically talking about what you provide. Now, and it's no different with any industry. All of a sudden you're looking like the expert in the field. They're going to want to know, oh, well, this person answered my question so well, what products do they have? So that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And I think as business owners, we tend to get caught up in the technicalities or the specs of our products and we're not really thinking how our customers are looking at it. So when we start looking at their questions, you'll actually see that you may actually come up with like different phrases or different ways of talking about your product that you never thought about, which all adds to your sales copy as well.
Yeah, I think we get caught up in our own terminology at times.
Yep.
And sometimes we're not even the expert in the field. And so when you start hearing the words that the audience is using, the customers are using, all of a sudden now you're breaking into territory that you weren't even writing about before. So that, yeah, cool.
So one other strategy that I use that some people may not be familiar with the program, but it's called SEMRush. It's an SEO software program. What you can do in there, there's a really cool feature called, I think it's called like backlink suggestions or something like that. What they're doing is they're going out and searching all the blogs and forums for questions that are being asked around your topic. So even if you don't have a lot of questions coming in from customer service, or you run out of questions from Answer the Public, these are actually questions that are being asked on industry-specific blogs and forums that relate directly to the topics that you're selling. So one of our strategies has always been, we'll download that list of questions that are being asked on a blog or on a forum. We'll go create a piece of content around it, and then go back to that question and say, hey, we saw that you asked a question about X, Y, and Z about about this product. We actually created a blog post about it and answered it over here. So it's a really good way to kind of create additional content topics, but then also create backlinks to the articles that you're writing.
Oh yeah, SEMRush, that's a great tool. Now, just to give everyone, just to be upfront with everyone, SEMRush is pretty much like a higher level tool, I think it's like $97 a month to start with. But the data you get, especially when you're getting into a content marketing thing, it's gold. It's absolutely gold, because it's going to tell you exactly what your competitors are doing, what their keywords are, and everything. And from an organic traffic standpoint, definitely one of the best tools out there in that category, I would have to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other tips on finding content?
I mean, those are the main ones. We went, just to kind of summarize that, our primary was always the customer questions that we were getting through customer service. We would then go out either using SEMrush or just doing Google searches for different blogs and forums that might be asking questions about it, and then leveraging sort of Answer the Public and the other one also asked to kind of gather other questions that we may not have been thinking about. Those are probably our three major resources, and when you use those three, there's plenty of content there for you to create. It should keep you busy for quite a long time.
So how do you recommend people structure their content when they're doing it? Is there a specific formula you have, or should there be a variety?
So we try to mix it up. We'll do, depending on what your strategy is. So there's a couple different strategies, and I mean, I could probably talk to you for hours about this, but we'll always try to mix in like a top 10 list or something like that, where we're recommending other products that complement our products. So, for like the kitchen, it might be like a granite company, it might be an appliance company, but we would just pick like the best of the best just to kind of do a summary list. It does two things. It shows that you're kind of positioning yourself as an authority, but if you do it right, they'll start to recommend people to go to the article because you're referring those types of companies.
So as an example, let me just step back for example. So as an Amazon seller, so a popular thing that we tell people not to really go into anymore, because too many people have gone into it, is taco stands, those little taco holder stands. So, someone's sitting there like, what can I write about when it comes to taco stands? So what you're saying is think of the complementary products that would go with that, because if someone's buying that, they'll probably need a cheese grater to grate the cheese, and they'll need, any of the other things that would go with it. So then what you do is you create a list, and so it could be an article of, how to do the best. I'm gonna butcher this. So this.
I'll give you a good one. It might be like the 10 things to make your Taco Tuesday night successful, or something like that.
Perfect.
So that might be different things that you can incorporate into that evening that would help complement the taco stands that you're selling.
And so by then recommending, so it's not your competition, you're looking for complementary products. So products that you probably won't end up selling, or maybe you will down the road, but right now the whole idea is you're just providing value for your customer. But the cool thing with that is what you're saying is the reward is oftentimes these people see that their product is in that article, so they'll want to promote it as well. Have you ever reached out to people and said, hey, I wrote this article, I included your product, just want to let you know in case you wanted to do a little shout out for it?
Yeah, exactly. So that would be the like phase 2 of that strategy, would be to reach out to those companies and just say, hey, we created this really good article about, the perfect Taco Tuesday night. Your product was mentioned in it. If you'd love to share it, here's a link. Just want to let you know it's out there. So we don't really push it, but we just let them know that it's there. And a lot of times they take it because it's not, you're not being overly promotional. It's creating a good story. So a lot of times you'll get people to actually share that on their site or on their blog or wherever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just get someone posted on Facebook, I mean, any little bit of exposure is good exposure. So
yeah. Cool. So another thing that we could do along those lines, because as you're talking, my brain started going here. Something, it may not even be related to your actual product, but something like that might be like, the 5 things that make the perfect taco, and you reach out to a couple of chefs that are famous for their tacos and get them to give you tips on like what they put into the perfect taco. What you're doing is you're leveraging some of their authority by getting them to contribute to the article. Most people, if they're quoted in an article, are going to share it on their site or whatever. So you're creating a little bit of virality without doing a lot of work. And that's literally just a simple email or a phone call just saying, hey, we wanted to do this, perfect taco article. Would you mind contributing to it?
Yeah, so I want to actually back up and focus on that for a second, because I think oftentimes people might be intimidated to think, oh, would someone want to write for me or anything? But you've had a lot of success recruiting people, because often these people, they're not really, they're not sitting there, they're not like you, a product salesperson that they're sitting there, trying to sell their taco stands. They're actually a chef. They're passionate about like what they're creating. And so for them to be able to get any publicity, like maybe even like publishing their little taco stand or their restaurant or, their website, that would be great for them. So what do you do? How do you like research that? Do you just look online? Do you, Yellow Pages? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the product and it depends on the niche. Something like that where it's chefs, you could do a Google search for like, I don't know, there's always contests out there for like the best taco or the best pizza or something like that. I would find those types of articles and see who was recommended as the top ones and just reach out to them that way. For some industries, I'll give you a really good example. So I'm moving into the pet industry, a business that we just acquired. I started looking at sort of the educational side and looking at the veterinary schools and those types of things, because that's a whole database or wealth of knowledge that lends authority to my article, but they usually don't get contacted by people. So like they're just happy to share their information and maybe get a little of their own exposure. So when you start getting creative and think about who indirectly impacts my product, there's a whole world of people out there that are, not necessarily starving for exposure, but they're not getting approached by people on a daily basis. So they're more than happy to contribute to stuff like that.
That's awesome. What do you see as like the biggest mistake people make when they are trying to put together content?
I'd say there's 2 things. One, and I used to make this mistake myself, I tried to get the cheapest article possible. So I'd go on like an Upwork, or I'd hire somebody, nothing against this, but hiring people from like overseas, and whether it's Philippines or India or whatever, that don't really understand the subtle nuances maybe of the product that I'm trying to sell. So all they would do is do a Google search, pull a bunch of content from other things and put it into an article. But when you read it, it didn't have that the specific buzzwords and everything that I'd really needed to do. The other mistake was using the old school strategy of just stuffing it with as many keywords as possible, so that it seemed fake and it seemed like it was something artificial. The more genuine you can be and the more authoritative you can actually be in the article, which means it usually ends up being a little bit longer, the better. So now I go for quality versus quantity, whereas before I used to go for as many articles as possible and I didn't really care about the quality.
Do you have specific purposes with your content? Like, do you, is it always link building? Is it traffic? Or do you have a variety of purposes?
It would be a combination of everything. So, when you start really diving into it, and you get to like sort of the second phase of content creation, that would be more of like guest posting and outreaching to other websites to try to put content on their sites. For that, it's creating more of an authoritative position. When it's on my own blog, it's more for the backlinks and driving traffic to my site. So once I get them to the site, unlike Amazon maybe, where I can drop in my Facebook pixel and I can drop in my Google pixel and I can retarget them for quite a long time. So for me, it's getting as many eyeballs to the site as possible and then I can put together email campaigns and those kind of things to try to nurture those people. So
interesting. So you're saying, for example, using the taco thing, like if you were able to do a guest post on something, you wouldn't recommend them linking to the Amazon thing. You'd recommend them linking ideally to like your own blog where you could have pixels. So then now you can retarget that traffic.
correct. But that same strategy works for Amazon. So if your intent is to never actually build out your own blog, like you either don't have the team or you don't want to put the resources into it, driving those articles to your Amazon listings will actually help increase the SEO value of your Amazon listings. As you when you do Google searches now, you see that Amazon listings actually do come up. So if you're driving links to them, Google sees that as authority being driven to those actual products.
And Amazon does reward for diversity of traffic, and the more activity you're getting on your listing, the more they reward you. So it is a win-win. Awesome. So there was one other thing I wanted to. Oh yeah. So we used to talk about keywords. So do you actually focus on any keywords at all, or like how do you do that? So like using the taco stand, like say I found like I want to rank for best taco stand. How would you format your article for that?
So I'll give you sort of previous strategy versus current strategy. Previous strategy was you want to load up that specific keyword as many times in that article without going over like a 2 to 3% ratio of keyword to word.
Put it in the title, all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Now the strategy that I've been going with is multiple versions of that word within the article. So not just best taco stand. It would be drawing a blank on different variations. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the different variations. So taco holder, taco stand, like using those types of variations so that it seems more natural. So you're not always just repeating best taco stand, best taco stand. So I'd have like 5 or 6 different keywords that I kind of pepper throughout that article versus just that one having it solely focus on that keyword.
Cool. And here's the last thing I'll ask you, because obviously, you've got the content, but how do you get the content ranking? Like what is your number one, like backlink ranking kind of strategy?
Yeah. So backlinking strategy, we actually sort of alluded to it. It's even if you can't get people to quote things within your article, or like you don't do that outreach, look for authoritative sites that have already talked about that topic. So you could say, let's say tacos, it would be like, I saw this recipe from such and such over here, and here's what they said about it. Then I would reach out to them and just say, hey, I wanted to let you know I mentioned you in this article or whatever it is. So a lot of it comes down to that sort of outreach side of it, and just try to do some of that stuff. What we also do is we do, which could be a whole other topic for you, would be sort of our content distribution, where we turn it into multiple formats of media, and then we distribute that on different channels. So it's really just building out as many backlinks as you can to those articles. You can look at as I mentioned before, the forums, finding questions that were pertaining to that topic. So, in this case, if we were talking about the 5 best taco recipes, finding sites that are asking, what is the best taco recipe? So that you then go post a link to your blog and get a backlink that way. It'll grow over time. So again, this isn't something like the first day you have to go find 40 or 50 backlinks to your article. It'll just naturally progress over time, and build and build and build as you go.
So something that, I want to make sure people understand. So again, like there's no exaggeration here. You built a company up to a, $40 million value. And you did it with a combination. You did a lot of money, but it was primarily, and you become an expert. You actually do workshops and everything on content marketing strategies, but you did it in such a way that it grew over time. Now I have to believe that when you exited your business, you must have got a multiple added because of that huge content network you had that was driving perpetual traffic.
Yeah, and that's a great topic there too. The more you can diversify your traffic flow, the higher the multiple you can get when you go to exit your business. Because they realize that, so let's say you're just on Amazon, you have 95 or 99% of your traffic comes from Amazon. For any potential buyer, that is seen as a risk, because if Amazon TOS, terms of service changes or algorithm changes and suddenly you lose half your traffic, that's a risk for the potential buyer. Yeah. So just by doing this and laying this, like I call it a spider web, it's like a wagon wheel or a spider web of links coming in and traffic coming from different sources. Even if one of them got shut down tomorrow, it only impacts maybe 10% of your business or 5% of your business. So that gives the potential buyer a lot of security, and they're willing to pay a little bit more for it. So yes, it's actually a really good point, is that this strategy, you know, if your goal is to sell your business in a couple of years, is actually laying the foundation for you to say, no, we are not dependent on just one traffic source. We have all this other stuff that's bringing us in, and this is ongoing and won't change.
Cool. Yeah, you know, I think oftentimes people don't look at that. And I guess what I'm saying here is, you know, one of the best strategies you can do for building a long-term business is make it as sellable as possible. And by making it as sellable as possible, that means you're making it as profitable and as failure-proof as possible. And this is one of those strategies because, as Gary has told you multiple times, this led to a lot of the success he had. But what it did is it's kind of like building that foundation. He put all this work into place, and then now he has this awesome system that when someone came in to buy his business, they're looking at like, wow, you have this perpetual traffic system that, you know, has all of this traffic coming in. I'm not worried that it's just focused on this one traffic model. I see that it's getting traffic from everywhere, and there's long-term value in here. So if you're sitting there just starting out, absolutely, like you want to get started with your sponsored ads, you want to do those core things, but now is the best time, no matter where you are in your business, to get started on a content strategy and realize, like as Gary said, this isn't something that, you know, go and publish some content this week and next week, oh, you're flying. No, this is a long-term strategy. But I mean, what on average, like if you start, what would you tell people? Like try to post how much content per week over the next few months before you should start seeing some significant improvements.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on obviously your time commitments and availability and everything. But our goal is always to put out 2 new pieces of content per week, and they don't have to be overly produced or anything like that. Like I said, we're just really answering the questions that people are asking us and just putting it into a nice format. So if you can get in a pattern where you can actually start creating maybe 2 pieces of content per week and just, you know, putting it out, whether it's on your blog or on one of the sites we mentioned, like Google sites, or whatever, you're going to start to see some traction develop. So, you know, it may not be the first month, but second month, you'll start to see a couple eyeballs coming through, or a couple hits from this site, a couple hits from that site, and it'll just snowball from there.
And on sites, correct me if I'm wrong, but on sites like Google Sites and everything, can you put any retargeting codes, or would that only be on your own personal sites?
You know, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I've never actually tried it because we've always just linked them back to our own blog. But yeah, that's actually something to look into. I'm not sure if you can or not.
Cool. Gary, any closing remarks for anybody on here regarding this strategy?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is, you know, if you think you have a hard time writing content, imagine trying to write about kitchen cabinets for 10 years when you know nothing about them. It was almost impossible. So that's how I developed this strategy. It was like I just ran out of things to talk about. So I can tell you for a fact that it works. I've worked with over 100 some businesses now in the last 2 years and gave this strategy. It's worked for all of them. So just start at your own pace. It doesn't have to be something where you do, you know, 100 articles in the next month, but just start slowly doing this, and you're going to see that traction grow. And it's going to inspire you to keep
doing. One last question. You know, back in the day, it used to be, oh, you need to have at least a 400-word article. Is there any specific length you want to target for minimum, or is there variety the key? What do you think?
No, and I don't think there's a minimum. So over the last 3 months, I've literally deconstructed probably about 40 or 50 different blogs in the niche that I was looking at. The one pattern that I noticed, the ones that were ranking the highest were really long, informative articles. So, you know, some of them were up to 6,000 words. Some of them were 2,000 words. I would say now the more informative you can be, the better. So a little bit longer tail or a little bit longer form. But you may have questions that only lend themselves to a short answer. So don't let that be the driving factor. It's more about answering the question in the most concise way and most informative way that you can.
Cool. Awesome. So just so you know, Gary is actually going to be at SellerCon again this year. Gary was at our last SellerCon last year. So if you want to learn more from Gary, you want to come to SellerCon in July. Tickets are on sale right now. And Gary, what are you going to be talking about in July?
So I'm going to cover a couple different things. We might go a little bit deeper into this, and we'll talk about some of the ways that I grew my business outside of just the content distribution. So it'd be really informative for anybody, no matter what stage of business they're in, whether they're just getting started out, you know, they're at 7 figures, or they're even in the 8-figure mark. I guarantee there's going to be something that you'll learn from it.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to learn more about you right now, where can they go?
Yeah, so I have a blog. if you go to GaryNeelan.com, I essentially do a brain dump. I try to do 2 or 3 a week, just any topic that comes to mind. Or I use the same strategy. If one of my clients or somebody asks me a question, I immediately just turn that into a piece of content.
Awesome. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being here. If you want to check out Gary, learn more about him, go to GaryNeelan.com. And remember, he's going to be at SellerCon this year, so go to SellerCon.com. It's in Austin this year in July 16th, 17th, and 18th, I believe, here in Austin, Texas. Gary, always a pleasure. Always so impressed with what you were able to do. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Always thanks for giving back, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.